Granny Myers' Curse. That belief in witchcraft still exists in the United States cannot be denied, as the newspapers every now and then print accounts of doings of alleged witches in remote parts of the country. But nowhere did it flourish, and its teachings defy the advance of modern enlightenment to such an extent as in the mountains of central Pennsylvania. A typical case of Pennsylvania witchcraft is that of an old Swiss, Christ by name, who tills a 60-acre farm on a bleak mountain top along what is known as the Pine Road that runs from Jersey Shore to Loganton. His house stands back 100 yards from the road. The original structure was built of logs, but as more prosperous days ensued, a frame mansion was tacked on the less imposing log cabin. Not another house can be seen from the windows, which look over a dreary expanse of fire-swept summits, slashings, and abandoned clearings. The gable of the large barn, standing between the road and the house, is covered with bear paws, nailed in disorderly profusion. Several sets of buckhorns adorn the slanting roof of the nearby corn crib. With such surroundings, it is not surprising that people become easy prey to mental vagaries, and live in terror of persons possessing supposed supernatural powers. Formerly Christ had his brother, Michael, whose house was 2 miles up a secluded hemlock hollow, for next-door neighbor, but alleged spirit-rapping and apparitions caused Mike to move to a farm near a town and neighbors. At present, Christ's nearest neighbors are the family of an old woman whom we shall call Granny Myers, reputed among the mountaineers as a witch, and famed for the potency of her spells, who lived in a windowless shanty 3 miles away. One fall, about 15 years ago, some of Christ's cattle broke into the Myers buckwheat field, and one was mysteriously shot. Threats of criminal prosecution were made, until one night Granny Myers strode into Christ's kitchen, and in the presence of several witnesses, cursed the farmer, his wife, and his daughter, in these words: "Christ, you shall shrivel to death with rheumatics. Your woman shall develop a cancer, and your daughter shall cough up blood until she fades away." Then she went out, slamming the door after her, leaving the Christs in a state of nervous collapse. Several months passed by. It was the month of February. The Pine Road was deep in snow, and not even a shingle sled could navigate. But a little thing like this could not daunt old John Dice, the witch doctor, from the river bottom, who, clad in his familiar coat of gray, knee-deep in slush, was bound for a vendue on the east end of Sugar Valley. As he passed the Christ farm, a withered figure hobbled to the fence and waved his hand to him. "Come here," he called. "My woman is dying with the cancer, my girl is coughing up blood, and I'm dying with the rheumatics." The witch doctor climbed the gate and followed the farmer to his house. Mrs. Christ, complaining of terrible pains in her side, lay moaning on a sofa, and the 19-year-old daughter, worn almost to a skeleton, dragged herself about the house, coughing every few minutes. "Granny Myers done it," was all they would say. The witch doctor, who understood the trouble at a glance, promised to have the spell removed within the week, and before an hour was at the hut of the alleged witch. On his way, in a snow-covered lot, he noticed 4 miserable horses huddled together, protecting themselves as best they could from the cruel winter wind. All told, they had but 2 eyes and 1 good tail among them, these cast-offs. Granny Myers, a tall, raw-boned woman with a long nose and enormous hands, was smoking her clay pipe by the stove, when her old enemy, John Dice, who never knocked, came in and shook the snow from his boots. "Go over to Christ's and tell them you've taken that spell off, or mark my word, it's now Friday, by next Monday your 4 horses will be dead, and you will follow them." That was all John Dice said before he resumed his tramp to the vendue. The next Monday, true to his promise, he appeared at Granny Myers' door, a scythe and a poleaxe, purchased at the vendue, slung over his massive shoulders. Granny heard his footsteps, and was on hand to meet him. "You old devil," she said. "My crowbaits are all 4 dead, and I was to Christ's yesterday." When the witch doctor revisited the Christ kitchen, a vastly different scene met his eyes. Christ, humming to himself, was mending a rocking-chair, his smiling wife lifting a heavy kettle from the stove, while his daughter was setting the tea-table. "Won't you stay to supper?" said Christ. "The old hex has taken off the spell, and we're all well again." Granny Myers had a daughter, who was married to Jakey Welshans, a small storekeeper in the German settlement. The old woman would tie up her bundle and wend her way over the hills and make protracted visits to her daughter, often lasting a year at a time, much to the disgust of Jakey. On one of these visits, when she had created turmoil among the Welshans for 11 months and showed no signs of going home, Jakey hit upon the scheme of enlisting the aid of John Dyce in ridding his household of the disturbing mother-in-law. So one day he met John, who was electioneering for a Republican candidate, John is a Democrat, and told him of his unhappy predicament. "The old woman is awful scared of you, ever since you killed them horses on her. If you tell her something bad may come to her, she'll light out pretty quick." "All right," said John. "Let's tend to her case now." "The old woman is a great listener," continued Jakey, "and if you talk kind of loud on the porch, she'll be peeking through the keyhole." Arriving at the Welshans' store, they walked around to the side porch, ostensibly to give John a drink from the well. A hasty glance through the kitchen window showed Granny Myers standing inside the closed kitchen door. "I'm down on that infernal old mother-in-law of yours," said John in his loudest tones, "and she'd better be going home soon, or—" "Oh, don't talk like that. She's a lovely woman," interposed son-in-law Jakey. "I mean what I say," said John. "I have no use for that old hex, and she'd better clear out, for if she doesn't her blood will dry in her veins and she'll die standing up." Then John got his drink of well water and resumed his electioneering for the Republican candidate. But his words had their effect. At the dinner table that day, Granny said she thought it was time to go home. All endeavored to prevail on her to stay, even the children, but with no avail. At 4:30 the next morning she came downstairs with her bundles and started on her 10-mile walk across the mountains. And to this day Granny Myers has never revisited the German settlement.